All right, y'all, Thursday edition football show. Welcome to our new sponsor, football show brought to you by Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville, Bluegrass in Hendersonville, locally owned since 1985, and this sweet venue and event space. How about a draft party, folks? What do you guys think? Right here, some beverages, some food. Zach, what do you think? Draft party?
I'll bartend.
There we go. Strong drinks for everybody.
I can drink the supplies.
Strong drinks for everybody. Sinkers, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to a football show, Thursday edition, and that is right. Welcome to our brand new sponsor, Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville, Bluegrass, of course, in Hendersonville, and we are live at this killer event space here in, what do we call this, WeHo? Wedgwood, Houston area, I believe is what we call this area. Really cool office here.
We're off 4th Avenue.
Off 4th Avenue, of course, in WeHo. That's right. So, Sinkers, welcome to the show. He is Zach.
Sounds very Californian. I don't know if I like this WeHo
thing. I don't love all the nicknames that are happening in Nashville either, but that is what the kids are saying these days. But welcome. We've got a huge show planned for you guys. We're going to go through the entire AFC South because the first wave of free agency is gone. We spent a lot of time on the Titans every week on this show, twice a week on this show. But let's take a look at the Texans, the Jags. Let's take a look at the Colts. Let's see how everybody's doing relative to each other. How does that affect how we view the division? There's some free agency, other news trickling in and out, of course, around the Titans. We've also got some DeAndre Hopkins rumors that are swirling, and we're going to shut those down for you real fast on the show today. And, of course, some spring storylines. Just how do you need to pay attention to spring football in the SEC? It's an important PSA later on in the show. Now, Zach, the Kingston Group is still a great locally owned sponsor here on the show. BuildKG.com. If you need any big decisions about a house, make sure you talk to the Kingston Group. BuildKG.com. But part of the reason we love working with Sinkers and wanted to work with Sinkers is not only does Zach shop at Bluegrass up in Hendersonville, I shop at Sinkers in East Nashville, but it's because they adhere to all of the principles and the guidelines of what a 440 Sports partnership looks like, which is their product's just a little bit better than everybody else's. Okay? They've got cool live events. They've got live tastings. They've got a VIP access to early stuff, allocation stuff, and they've got this killer event space here at Track One, again, in Wedgwood, Houston area. And we've got some cool stuff planned for you guys. We're going to have some events here throughout the course of the summer and the football season, and Sinkers is the one making it happen. So, also, oh, by the way, Uber Eats, search Sinkers, have the booze delivered right to your house. They are just better than everybody else.
We're all about booze delivery.
Yes, we are.
They, you know what? You know what that means? You can drink. Wait a minute. They'll drive so you can drink. There we go. It's been a while. It's been a while.
It's
been a while since I used that.
Well done. Listen, if you want to jump into the comment section, please do. Of course, we've got lots of AFC South talk today. But again, welcome to the show. If you're in Hendersonville, if you're up in the North Nashville area, of course, Bluegrass is your spot. If you're in East, go check out Sinkers Beverages. Again, better selection. Family owned and operated since 1985. Recently renovated and remodeled. I've been shopping there now for the last few years. Go check out Sinkers, everybody. So support local business. And again, if you want a little bit better wine selection, a little bit better bourbon selection, somebody to help you through that process, Uber Eats, search Sinkers, all the good stuff there from Sinkers. So welcome to the show, everybody. And look, we're going to have some cool events here planned. I don't know. There's an event coming up at the end of April.
Oh, there is, isn't there? It's almost our 1-year anniversary, wouldn't you say?
It would be, actually.
Yeah.
Almost to the day. So we might have something planned for you guys. So just stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Sinkers.
For our most loyal listeners.
Only. And here's the other thing about Sinkers. When you go in there, it's called the In Crowd. Sign up for the In Crowd. You can sign up on their website as well. You'll get all kinds of VIP access. You'll get allocation information. You'll get when to come by and get early access to certain things. There's VIP tastings that are going on in the store all the time as well. So sign up for In the In Crowd. They'll track all the spending, and then only certain very important customers will have access to some of these parties that we're going to do. We're going to have some parties.
We're going to have some parties.
We're going to have some parties.
I mean, look at, I almost thought about turning around and having a party right now.
This one right here. I like that
Love
one right
Four
there.
Roses.
I like that one right there. I like all these. These are all delicious. So, okay. Thanks to the Kingston Group and welcome to Sinkers, of course, and Bluegrass as well. We love you guys. Thank you for supporting local business out there, all you guys listening. So, all right, here we go. We'll get to Nuke Hopkins, and we will get to some other free agent updates, and we'll get to some SEC storylines, how you should consume content in the SEC. But let's start with looking at the AFC. If I just said in general, who gained the most ground on their previous version of themselves?
Oh, it'd be the Texans.
It's got to be the
down.
Texans,
I mean,
right?
like, they got the best coach. I mean, you could argue theoretically that they have the best coaching hire of the entire coaching cycle, and they have essentially, in my opinion, the second best coach in the AFC South. Like, I think D'Amico Ryans is legit, and it looks like D'Amico Ryans' vision is coming to fruition. The San Francisco model is coming to Houston, and it's overcoming the ineptitude of Nick Caserio that he has shown so far. It's just all kind of coming together for the Houston Texans. So they have gained the most ground in the AFC.
So I knew you were going to say, I agree with you. I think it's obvious that they've gained the most ground, and we'll go through, again, they've also signed more free agents and had the worst roster, so they had the easiest path ahead of them in terms of that. I think that D'Amico Ryans will be the second best coach in the division quickly.
He already is.
He probably is. Doug Peterson's gotten to a Super Bowl, and D'Amico Ryans has never coached a game. So I'm always hesitant, and I knew you were going to...
D'Amico Ryans has been to a Super Bowl.
Not as a head coach. So that matters. It's a different role.
How did the Peterson thing all end again?
Look, listen, I am... I knew you were going to do this.
Because he lost the locker room. Oh, that's right.
I knew you were going to
make it sure.
Plus 6 wins for Jacksonville last year under Doug Peterson. Now, listen.
Yeah, I mean, that 8-9 record.
I am not a Doug Peterson stan here. I think he is by default number 2 because we don't know what the other 2 guys are. I agree that D'Amico Ryans is probably the best hire of any team in the entire NFL.
Yes.
Love the hire. They're also sitting ahead of the Colts in the draft. So they're picking 2. Colts
and they're ahead of the Colts in a lot of areas, not just the draft.
Yes. So
in fact, the Colts probably have somehow lost more ground than what they had to come in with. Like
probably
they had like a short runway already, and then they just demolished it. Now they're just landing in mud when they're coming in to the airport.
That's a fantastic analogy. So the Houston Texans have also signed more people than anybody else. Now, I want to ask you a philosophical question about free agency. I was listening to the Paul Garski podcast today, so make sure you go check that out, of course, from the 440 Sports Network. I was listening to the F Words pod from the 440 Sports Network. Go check that out with you and Mike every Wednesday. And I think there's a common thought, and I think I've kind of ascribed to this for most of my football career covering football, and that is you don't win Super Bowls by outspending anybody. It's not the process with which you win. Consistently build winners. You have to build through the draft. The best franchises in the NFL build through the draft. Garski said this on the pod today that came out. The last 3 top spenders in free agency, Miami, New England, and Jacksonville, the last 3 years, Jacksonville last year, New England the year before that, and Miami the year before that. That's plus 14 combined wins for those 3 teams. Jacksonville was plus 6 last year. Miami was plus 3 the year before that in terms of wins, and Miami plus 5 the year before that. Those are just anecdotal numbers. That doesn't tell the whole story because there's lots of teams that spend and suck.
Especially since Jaguars still had a losing record.
But they were coming from such a bad spot under Urban Meyer that it was much easier to gain ground when you already had Trevor Lawrence, let's say, on the roster. So it doesn't tell the whole story. But with the Titans having $140 million coming up next year, and the Texans going all in on a bunch of weapons to support whoever they draft.
I mean, we got to define all in because they're relatively really good contracts.
But what I meant to say is I probably should rephrase that. An efficient approach to upgrading their roster around what is probably going to be C.J. Stroud, I assume, or maybe Bryce Young, one of the 2 at that number 2 pick. They've done a good job with Dalton Schultz and Devin Singletary and Robert Woods. They added Jimmy Ward to the safety group. Chase Winovich, Sheldon Rankins, a bunch of veterans that aren't super great, but not terrible. The contracts are efficient, in my opinion, to your point. I just think when you look at the draft slot and you look at D'Amico Ryans and you look at the free agency that they've put around what's going to be a rookie quarterback, it's hard not to say that Houston has done so far the best job of any team in the South.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So they've added 16 free agents, which is tied for second most in the NFL so far.
Lot.
But they have spent only the 15th most in the offseason. So not only have they gotten a bunch of players, they've only spent basically the league average in terms of money spent and overall total value of a contract. So they're only a few spots ahead of how much the Tennessee Titans have spent in overall value of contract. So they're not too far away. They just have gotten a lot more players for less money, which is what you kind of want to do. Like the thing about spending money in the first day of free agency, those days, usually those don't work out. Those signings don't work out. You're overpaying for players that you're afraid won't be there in like an hour.
Give me
so.
some, like, are you talking
Like
about
Mike
Jesse?
McGlinchey's
Talking about
about-
Jesse Bates?
Yeah, Jesse
That
Bates, Mike McGlinchey's an
Okay.
overpay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Nate Davis is an overpay. Stuff like that. That's why I am a big believer in kind of like just it's not bargain bin shopping, it's value
It's efficient.
shopping.
It's efficiency.
It's being efficient.
And also, here, let me ask you this about the Titans versus the Texans, just relative. I think because we're talking about getting more players for cheaper prices per player by the Texans, right? Even though we kind of joke about the Titans roster being in like it's a big mess. They don't have receivers. The offensive line was atrocious. That's all true. It still was nowhere near the quality, poor quality of the Texans roster.
No.
Which means they can bring a bunch of these guys in.
It wasn't technically, in essence, on paper, technically was not a bad roster for 2022. Injuries made it a bad roster for the Tennessee Titans. The Texans were a bad roster, and they don't have any excuse because there is no injury excuse or reason for that other than they just were a poorly coached, poorly built team at the time.
And obviously Brandon Cooks now is off and off the roster, so it's a big contract that's been removed.
Still have a wide receiver issue over there, which they are like battling out with the Titans for the worst wide receiver room, which I do think the Texans have a better one, by the way.
Better than the Titans.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
well, they have actually enough people to build out a wide receiver room. It's kind of like a Wayne's World when his crazy girlfriend comes up and she gives him a gun rack. He's like, I don't even own a gun, let alone many guns that would necessitate a gun rack. Okay, so the Titans don't have a wide receiver room. They don't have they have a physical wide receiver room built in St. Thomas Sports Park somewhere.
Are you sure?
But they don't have enough wide receivers to go into it. At least the Texans have that.
Well, and Dalton Schultz I think Chig will be better. Dalton Schultz right now is a more proven commodity. Robert Woods is what he is. We know exactly what it is. I probably think higher of Robert Woods than most Titans fans do. But he's a 2.5 wide receiver 3. They're going to have to upgrade those positions. I just think it's really here the beauty of this, and this kind of goes into our Titans conversation we've had for 3 months now, which is you can rebuild, glow up, whatever. You can do it really fast in the NFL.
And they're doing it really fast.
And they're doing it with they're going to probably have their franchise quarterback and the head coach.
Like this whole quarterback thing between the Texans and I don't know if you're really up to date on what's going on between the Texans and the Colts, but the Colts are actively looking to fuck it up. But anyway, let's talk about the Texans real quick. If for whatever reason the Panthers decide to draft Bryce Young, the Texans are not drafting a quarterback at 2 is pretty much the prevailing thought. They do not like C.J. Stroud. They do not like Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. That is the prevailing thought that they will be out of that. The Colts,
they think there's that big of a gap between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud.
That's what people are saying. Now listen.
Because the rumors are the Panthers like Richardson.
Right. Well, no. Well, the biggest rumor, I mean, like, I don't know what you can believe because it is smoke screen season, but they are like all over C.J. Stroud's jockstrap. Like this, Frank Reich, I don't know if you saw the clip of them after his workout, but Josh McCown, who's on staff with the Panthers, he's like, hey, we'll have to find a court. And C.J. Stroud's like, yeah, there's a court right over here, play basketball. And he goes, no, when you get to Carolina, whatever, Raleigh, I think wherever they're
Charlotte.
That's where it's at. Get to Charlotte, and that's when we'll play basketball. So, like when you live in Charlotte,
I got you.
So,
well, North Carolina does like
Josh McCown, though. Also, before he even got the job, was like all over C.J. Stroud in like when he was going to talk about quarterbacks and doing the whole analysis thing. If they don't draft C.J. Stroud and they draft Anthony Richardson, this is like Bud Adams, Jeff Fisher. Drafting Vince Young part 2. Like, I'm saying it could work out better because Frank Reich and because of this, but that is the Panthers ownership, David Tepper, saying, I want Anthony Richardson.
So your whole spiel is if Bryce Young's available at 2, they take Bryce Young and they're good to go.
Yeah.
But if it's anybody else, you think they're going Will Anderson?
Yeah, I would assume so, or a trade back and letting someone else come up, which would make sense. I mean, when you're talking about a team like that. But I've always said,
seems
like
a huge mistake.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I do think it's a huge mistake. But I've always said that this is all about building a team, and where their team is at right now, they can get other draft picks and move back just a little bit. To me. They didn't sign Jimmy G, so it's like Davis Mills and what quarterback did they freaking sign? That I thought was ridiculous. Well, they signed Kyle Allen.
Kyle Allen,
and they signed Case
Houston.
Keenum. If I'm not
Two
mistaken.
Houston Cougar quarterbacks.
No, Case Keenum or Kyle Allen left, so they signed Case Keenum. Is their quarterback, so they don't have.
Thank you, Stoney, for that. The Panthers. Stoney also chimes in. The Panthers were all over Stroud's hog at the Ohio State Pro Day. I don't know what that means, Stoney. Trey says whole setup is fired today. Thank you, Trey, for tuning in and for noticing how awesome this setup is. Provided by Sinkers in East Nashville, Bluegrass in Hendersonville. Go shop there, buy your liquor there. Uber Eats, search Sinkers. Continue.
But I mean, that's just what the rumors are out there. So rumors are rumors. You don't really know. But the prevailing thought is that they just are not as sold on CJ Stroud as everybody else is. And maybe there's good cause for that, at least at number 2. But to me, it's like their team is now probably good enough to be third place in AFC South without a quarterback. If you get a quarterback and that quarterback is good, that's the big thing. Can Bobby Slowick work some magic over there and do something with it?
It's about the conviction of your evaluation.
Yeah, so I don't think they have that big conviction, it sounds like.
By the way, this is an autographed Chris Johnston helmet right here. So Sinkers, not only locally owned, but also huge Titans fans, okay? So they like the Titans as much as you guys do. So, all right, Jacksonville's fascinating to me because they spent a ton of money last year, and we all kind of chuckled and said, go ahead, Eagles. Try to do what the Eagles did and make the dream team. Or, we kind of always laugh at the team that spends the most money. Jacksonville's a lot of times is one of them. But it worked last year. Some of that's because Urban Meyer's just not there. Not there. That's the number one reason it worked.
And a lot of it was the Tennessee Titans had Todd Downing and a bunch of injuries.
Sure, certainly. The division is very easy
because
to
that could have
games.
Easily been 6-11 and not 8-9.
No question about it. Trevor Lawrence already was on the roster, so the number 1 overall pick from the year before was already on the roster. They did spend on a very specific skill set, speed at receiver around them. Well, this year, 0. Not one single free agent. Now, I actually like it because Calvin Ridley counts in this conversation as an acquisition in theory. He's not a free agent signing, but Calvin Ridley is now packaged with Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram and all those weapons. There's a lot of speed in the backfield. There's a lot of speed at receiver, a lot of speed at tight end, and you got a quarterback who knows how to distribute the ball. I think Peterson limits their upside long term, but I think in the short term, I actually like the fact that Jacksonville said, we did all our work last year. They haven't made a huge, big jump in progress this year, but they got a lot of young players on defense, and they've added Ridley. So not as big a jump as Houston, but I think kind of maintaining the course is how I would describe Jacksonville. I don't know how you feel.
I mean, I, as a Titans fan, enjoy it because I think they're making a huge mistake relying on players that have had one season of success, like Christian Kirk, like Zay Jones, like Evan Ingram. Out of the whole time, they've only had this one amazing season, and they're looking to recapture that glory. So they're restructuring deals. You know who else does that and tries to recapture their glory and restructure deals and all that kind of stuff? The New Orleans Saints. So I personally like it because you're talking about keeping the same talent that you had last year. That got you
like it as a
wins.
You like it as a Titans fan.
I love it as
you don't like it.
I mean,
as a strategy. For
I think
them.
Not as a strategy for them. Objectively, that's a horrible strategy because you're treading water, and you're an 8-win team, and you're only an 8-win team because the other teams in your division were piss poor. That's not going to be the case this year. This is going to be a much more competitive division last year outside of the Colts, but it's going to be a much more competitive division than last year. Treading water,
more balanced.
Yeah, treading water does not make a ton of sense at the Jacksonville this stage while you have a rookie quarterback contract. That is the thing. This is not taking advantage of your competitive advantage over everybody else in the division.
So I think that argument is fair. I guess the question is they're so young on defense, and Lawrence and Etienne and some of these guys are still very young on offense. They did their big spend last year. I agree with you.
They did sign 2 free agents, by the way. Michael Dogbe, a defensive end from Arizona, Dearness Johnson yesterday, which is who I wanted for the Titans.
Okay, there you go.
From Cleveland.
Listen, it's not as much ground. Like, it's interesting because I think you can grade the strategies and you can grade. And I don't want to do like the actual grading here, but you can evaluate the strategy and you can evaluate like the growth, and those could be different things.
Yeah,
Houston is clearly going to make up the most ground because they had the easiest path, the most to make up. The Titans and the Jags were the best in the division, and so they're there's less. It's just harder to go from 8 wins to 11 wins than it is to go from 3 to 8. So I actually like the different strategies for both teams. I'm interested to see if it works for Jacksonville because I know I'm a much bigger believer in Lawrence than you are. I like Peterson a little bit more than you do. Not great. I just think that they're set up for success because no one else can do what they can do in the division right now, which is sling it all over the field to weapons and play in space and play fast and play up. Like no one else in the division can do that right now. Maybe that changes with Tim Kelly. Maybe that changes with a healthy Tannehill. Maybe that changes with Bryce Young at Houston. I don't know.
I think that's a mistake for them to go that route too, because that's putting a lot on Trevor Lawrence, who he had magic in a bottle for the second half of the season. Then that magic dissipated, when he threw like 4 or 5 interceptions. I mean, I think
second half of that game was, I do remember the second half.
Yeah, well, that's called the Chargers implosion. First off, the Jaguars had one of the easiest schedules, had one of the hardest or one of the best injury rates. They had like nobody get injured,
which is hard to replicate.
Yeah. And that whole craziness of Trevor Lawrence's second half of the season where he goes up against really piss poor pass defenses, that needs to play into a factor. So the data and the history will tell you that the Jaguars are going to go back from 8 wins to probably 6 or 5 wins, in my opinion.
See, I think they're going to at least match what they did last year, if not grow. At least
it will be really tough because they're having to take a first place schedule.
Yeah, that's true. That's a really good argument.
And the Texans are better. The Titans are healthier.
Another reason to have rooted for them to lose last year. Here's what I would say: like Houston, 3 wins last year. They could easily get to 5 or 6 because they've made so much growth, because they've made so many moves. Indianapolis we'll get to in a second. 9 and 8. It's hard to go from 9 and 8 to 11 wins. It's just harder. I think they can match 9. The question is that good enough to win the division?
Well, they got to match 8, right? Because they didn't win 9 games last year.
They were 9 and 8 last year.
I thought they were 8 and 9.
9 and 8 last year. Winning record. They went from 3 to 9. But it's real hard, even though we saw this with the Titans. The Titans went quickly, right?
Yeah.
They went from 2 to 9, right? With Mike Mularkey's, I think, first season. And it was the biggest growth in the history of Titans football from one year to the next. And then it's hard to go from that next step where they go 9 and 7, 9 and 7. Oh, then they finally jump up with Vrabel to get to 11 wins. It takes time. I do think they can be as good. Because I think they get better, but the schedule gets harder. So
how did they get better? They didn't get better anywhere.
I think it's about Lawrence eliminating mistakes. That's what it's about for me. I think he gets better.
I think you're asking a lot.
I think the defense is full of young, talented players in the front 7. They're going to be better.
Georgia defenders, though, right? And let me
go
say
check out the episode on Monday.
Yeah, and let me say something. Trayvon Walker, he ain't worth shit.
I'm not there yet on him, bad or good. I'm actually completely agnostic. No, I'm apathetic to.
Well, I think
Trayvon
agnostic work too.
Exactly. The Colts, on the other hand, all right. So Houston better than Jacksonville. We'll get to where the Titans fit in all of this. Kingston Group, by the way, buildkg.com, and now Sinkers. Welcome to our show. The Colts, 4 wins last season, 4 and 12. They have brought in, who's their best free agent signing?
Gardner Minshew?
Nope.
Samson Ekebom?
Nope.
Bringing back EJ Speed?
Nope.
Who?
The kicker, Matt Gay.
Oh,
might be their best free agent signing. And if your best free agent, if your best free agent signing in the entire offseason is your kicker, now I know Titans fans, you could laugh about that and be like, why don't we do that? That could be a smart strategy. Spend a little cash on the best available kicker. That's their best free agent signing. And I don't again, I know they've got a high draft pick. They did re-sign Tyquan Lewis, I guess. They've got a high draft pick. They probably had more talent on their roster than Houston did, which is not saying much. Could they get to 6 wins? Maybe.
Oh, man.
I don't know what the coaching staff is. I don't know what the quarterback situation is. I think this is a bottom-out year for the Colts. I think you probably agree with me on that.
Yeah, I think it's not for a lack of trying, because first off, if this team is an embarrassment like it was last year, Chris Ballard's gone. And I don't know if Jonathan Gannon's job was technically safe just because he just got hired or not, because this is Jim Irsay we're talking about. But I will say on the caution that maybe he gets to stay and they bring in like some Eagles, GM to pair with him or whatever.
Some analytics.
Maybe
guru.
like Ian Cunningham or someone like that. The problem is that I told everybody at the Combine that the words that Chris Ballard is saying and his posture and his demeanor and his mannerisms lead me to believe that they're not drafting a quarterback. They're not sold at any quarterback at the top of this draft. And today, someone has finally in Indianapolis picked up on this and has added more context and more words. Greg Doyle at the Indy Star, I encourage you to go read it.
Very well sourced.
Very well sourced. He's picking out all the words being said. And he thinks, and this is what I said, with Jonathan Gannon, I thought Hendon Hooker is going to be the guy that's going to be drafted by the Colts in the second or third round.
Okay.
And it sounds like to me that it's going to be Hendon Hooker and that it's not going to be Will Levis, that it's not going to be Anthony Richardson. This is fantastic news for the Tennessee Titans, and I am totally bought in.
Whoa. Hang on.
Yeah.
It's not fantastic news if it's Hooker over Levis. Wouldn't you prefer them to take Levis with the fourth?
I wouldn't. No, I'd prefer them not to have a quarterback.
Okay. I thought we hated Will Levis.
I do, but I'm talking about now. They're going to waste a second or third round pick on a player who may not even be able to play year one, where they would force probably Will Levis out there. So they're going to be rolling with Gardner Minshew. That's pretty good. Now listen. What I don't understand what they're doing at all, because they're doing the same thing they always do, which is not spend a lot of money in free agency. And guess what that's going to do? Nothing for them, because they need help. They've lost Bobby Okukere or whatever his last name is. They've lost
Good
Paris
player.
Campbell, a lot of speed.
Solid player.
I mean, now they have Ashton Doolin, which they signed to way more money than what the Titans signed to Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. And Ashton Doolin has played 4 seasons, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine 3 seasons. And guess who has the better stats? NWI. So
it's not saying a lot.
Yeah, they signed Taven Bryan, who's a first round bust. They signed Isaiah McKenzie, which is a really weird signing because you already got Ashton Doolin. So why do you need Isaiah McKenzie?
So obviously the offensive line took a huge step back in terms of their on-field production.
Yeah, and they're just another year older.
My question is, isn't there the vast majority of their nucleus of skill players still fairly young or in their prime? Like Taylor's in his prime if he can stay healthy, but that's a huge if. You've got Pittman. You got who was the Cincinnati receiver that I'm drawing a blank on that had some nice moments. Alex Pierce.
Yeah,
Alex Pierce. They've got a bunch of tight ends that aren't great, but like have some ability. They're all kind of young.
Because Mo Alley Cox, I don't believe, is re-signed with them yet.
They're not old though. They're not old at those positions. So maybe there's some.
Isn't like Mo Alley Cox, even if he's on the team, like 33?
Well, no, he's different. I'm talking. Who's the other? There's another tight end that's like
Jelani.
The guy everybody lost their minds over last year in the draft.
Yeah.
So
and he did nothing.
I think it. So here's what I was told by and this is a reporter on Background who covers the team, who told me that Richardson is their guy. That Richardson's the one that they want, but to your point and to what we've said all the time about this, is we just don't. It's all smokescreen stuff, so we don't know if they're putting that out through back channels to try to gin up interest so that people want to come up and trade to get that spot. We just don't know what their motivations are. But that's the name that they like if they pick it at 4, which of course he may not be there. He could be taken at 1, 2, or I guess 1 or 2. I guess the Cardinals.
But to your point, this is a prime team that is at a state in its roster that can bottom out and get the number 1 quarterback next year. Like if I were to put odds on teams that are likely going to be picking number 1 overall next year, Colts are at the top of the list.
Is that because of the quarterback situation mostly?
Well, they're just
like if they don't,
a trash team. Well, they have a bad head coach. They have a bad GM, bad ownership. Okay. They have no quarterback, no weapons, no real weapons that you can count on. The offensive line just another year older, and it's already old enough, and it wasn't good last year. And the defense lost a lot of speed. And it doesn't look that good.
And their best players are kind of question marks.
Yeah,
like if they've taken steps back, and we're not sure about their long-term stability.
No Stephon Gilmore. They don't have any. They don't really have anybody to write home about. Like Gardner Minshew is the most exciting player that they got.
I know you don't like Michael Pittman. I like Michael Pittman, but
I mean Michael Pittman's a great wide receiver too. But you're basically asking Corey Davis to be wide receiver 1.
If Jonathan Taylor's healthy, obviously that changes. But that's a huge if. It's easy for me to say, and like if we're going to bring the Titans into this conversation now and say who has made up the most ground. And I think we don't know the answer for the Titans yet because we don't know what's going to happen with Kevin Byard, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, right? Those 3 in particular. And if those three stay here with the efficient names that they've signed, that we went deep on this on Monday, so go check out all of our thoughts on all the free agents. You guys did a lot of it as well on the F-Words pod, so go check out all the other shows for all the free agents, Dillard, Key, Alshier, all these guys, Brunskill. But if they keep all their guys, they've made up far more ground on their previous selves than the Colts have by a mile. If they were to trade Tannehill, acquire assets, trade Henry, get money off the books, and get an asset, they're more in a rebuild mode, and they've lost ground on themselves. Does that make sense? But then it's part of the strategy that Vrabel and Rand Carthon are employing on purpose.
It's also like it's Mike Vrabel, and I know people are like, well, Mike Vrabel can lose games, and he lost 7 games in a row. Yeah, I understand there's a lot of context behind those 7 games, but he is getting players that he wants there. He's getting players that can help him. We talked about in Football and Other F-Words, where Sean Murphy Bunting, he's a man coverage corner, right? Like his best features is that he's a press man. He likes to be man. And that's what Mike Vrabel's always wanted to do with this defense. He's never had the athletic people on the outside to be able to do that. So if you're getting Mike Vrabel who he wants, which is the whole point of collaboration, even if that means getting rid of people that you think cannot be replaced, Mike Vrabel in his mind is thinking, let's ship Tannehill out. Let's ship Henry out.
Yeah.
We'll sign a couple players that I know that we could fill in. We can get the most out of this team. And this defense is fucking elite right now. All that matters is that we are not injured.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Obviously, you mentioned Jacksonville last year. Some of their growth was that they stayed healthy. There's no question about that.
I mean, it's surely not the 3rd year in a row that they are like leading the league in injuries, right? I mean, that would be the worst bad luck ever.
Statistically, that would be highly improbable.
Yeah.
It's interesting
because you got Harold Landry coming
because you have Landry doesn't technically count, but like he does. Because if he
counts to like the state of the team.
Yeah. Well, if I said starting roster week 1 better this year or last year, there's so many
defense better, offense worse
with Landry back. But a lot of that's because they moved on from veterans that were a part of the team for a long time. Whereas the Jags haven't done that. The Colts kind of did that, but not really. The Texans are in the totally opposite ballpark, which they've gained the most ground. So if I'm doing a power rankings of teams in the division, I'd probably have the Jags 1, the Titans clearly 2. Then I'd go Texans, Colts down here at the bottom somewhere, maybe Texans above the Colts, give or take, especially if they draft a quarterback. But who made up the most ground? I don't know where to put the Titans. I honestly, I don't know, because Jacksonville did 0.
Well, they've lost ground technically when you look at the free agents they lost, but it's all on the offensive side of the football, right? Like that's the key thing here is that it's all on the offensive side of the football, which means that
other than David Long,
if you're strictly talking who's made up the most ground in the first 2 weeks of free agency, obviously Texans. If you're talking about who has lost the most ground, I think the Colts, because the Colts have lost players. They don't have a quarterback. The Titans still have Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry. So they didn't gain any ground, but if they lost ground, it's like by this much, because the players that you lost are Taylor Lewan, who's a non-factor, Robert Woods, who is a non-factor, and Austin Hooper, who's a non-factor. You can listen, Austin Hooper did some great stuff, but you're talking about losing 500 and 400-yard pass.
No. It's not an argument about those guys being great. It's just, but like, what's there right now?
Yeah,
and nothing there right now. So I think actually we kind of agree on this, which is rare for us. Here's what we agree: that the Texans have made up the most ground of anybody, clearly. That the Colts have probably taken the biggest step back, and that the Jags are basically dead even.
Yeah.
So the key is, where do we put the Titans in that conversation? And right now they have, at minimum, they're in the black or the red. They're in the red. They're in the red.
They're like barely in the red,
which puts them below Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But if they were to trade Tannehill and Byard or Henry, any of those names, they go further down, right? But it's on purpose.
And they could easily, after the draft, go back up.
Exactly. And if they get some
pieces, a sliding scale.
Right. But right now, it's clearly Texans positive,
most ground.
Colts negative, Jags 0, the Mendoza line or whatever, the 0 mark. And the Titans are kind of fluctuating around there. But it's very clear that Jacksonville and Tennessee are the 2 best teams in the division.
And what's cool, or I don't know if it's cool, but what's interesting is that the Tennessee Titans can make up a lot of ground because there's still time for them to make up a lot of ground.
Right.
And while the Jaguars, I feel like, with their lack of free agency moves, they don't have as much ground that they can try to gain, right? Like their runway is long, but it's not as long as the Tennessee Titans.
Right.
Tennessee Titans have a really long runway to gain some ground. I don't think they'll ever catch up to the Texans, though.
So the Jaguars are technically the defending champions. You know who's the defending champion best liquor store in Nashville 2021?
Sinkers.
The reigning champion. Nashville seen best liquor store in Nashville last year. Sinkers, right there's the logo right below me. Again, go sign up. The in crowd when you go to Sinkers in East Nashville or Bluegrass, their sister store up in Hendersonville. When you sign up, you get monthly allocation opportunity. You get VIP tickets to tastings. You get local tours of breweries and distilleries. You get early access to limited run supply of stuff and opportunities to join us here at this really cool event space for some special events that could be happening hypothetically around possibly a draft. I don't know. So go check it out. Also, there we go. Also, search Uber Eats, and again, part of the reason we're partnering with them is they check all of our boxes, right? As a draft prospect, they're locally owned and operated, so support local business. They believe in their people, like that's what they care about. They care about the community of people that come in. They renovated the whole store to make it a better environment and situation for people that go there. We use their store. You shop at Bluegrass, I shop at Sinkers. That's partly why we want to partner with people, because we use them and we trust them. And we wouldn't tell you to use somebody that we didn't use. And you know what? They just do their shit better than everybody else.
Yep.
That's it. Those are the people we partner with. Same with the Kingston Group, buildkg.com. They're not the cheapest company in Nashville to renovate your home, but they're the best. And that's why we partner with people. We partner with the best. So check out Sinkers and Bluegrass and check out the Kingston Group, buildkg.com. Free agency update. Zach, what else could the Titans be doing? We don't have numbers yet, by the way, on Andre Dillard's contract.
Yes, we do.
Oh, it's official?
Yes, that was official way early this morning. Please turn on notifications for @FWordsPod, and you'd have all this information. But since you
I hate notifications. I don't have any notifications on.
Since you don't know, let me scroll to find it real quick.
Apparently, your arms are looking jacked.
Looking jacked.
In that shirt.
Okay, 3-year, $29 million. We knew that. Two void years. We knew that there would probably be void years. 5.99 signing bonus.
Oh, did you put this on Twitter?
Yeah, I put it on Twitter. That's why I said turn notifications
put it on Twitter.
10 million fully guaranteed. You can earn up to 13 total guaranteed. 2023 cap hit is 2.56 million. You can actually cut him after this year 7 point something million in dead money, because that's on a different tweet, and like you save 2 point something in cap savings. So technically it could just be a 1-year deal, but if you keep him for 2 years, you're still you gain ground, pay some stuff off, and if you keep him for 2 years, it's a $10.698 million cap hit next year, which is not that insane of a cap hit for a left tackle.
Hard to argue with the job Rand Carthon's done with the pieces he's signed and how he signed them, the length of term, all that stuff. It's a 26-year-old former first-round pick with some upside. Make him prove it. That's pretty good.
They are currently at a little over $8 million in cap space.
So,
and then we're still waiting on SMB's contract.
Now, I know you guys talked a lot about this on F, so go check out the F Words pod. I will not turn on notifications. I'm sorry. It's not what I do.
Should.
But you're probably right. However, I know you guys talked a lot about what they still need to go get. And I don't necessarily need names from you, but I'm curious because they, like you said, we only have 8 million. How many? About 4.5 of that needs to go to the draft class.
Yeah, I need to update that because obviously
Roughly.
With Andre Dillard's contract, some other people got bumped off, so the kind of thresholds changed.
So the question is, they're still bargain bin shopping at this point, and they still could use some pieces.
Essentially, shopping at like Dillard's is essentially like you can get some nice clothes at Dillard's.
Okay.
But it's not as inexpensive as shopping at Kmart.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know that was still a store.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Where is it?
And you're not shopping at Nordstrom's. Yeah. So, like, that's where it's kind of at.
Yeah. That's Nordstrom's is Orlando Brown.
Yeah.
But what positions, though? Like tight end, maybe wide receiver. I haven't turned on the notifications, so I don't know if DJ Chark is still available at time of taping. I love that player.
Yeah,
that is a guy I would go get right now. He's physical.
You and Mike are all about it, and I'm okay with it.
I love DJ Chark.
I'm fine that Mecole Hardman's off the market. Sigh of relief. Like when the agent has sent messages out to everybody, like Ian Rappaport and all them, and the one that I think it was Schefter said, the Jets get their jet sweep guy or something like that, their sweep end around guy. And I'm thinking,
who wrote that for him?
Well, his agent, obviously. But like that's what people think of him. It's not even like they get the deep threat that they've needed, or they get fast guy. They get Mecole Hardman jet sweep specialist, which is hilarious.
It's a downgrade on Elijah Moore.
Yeah.
There's no question. You, of course, got
Oh, did you see Mike's
traded to the
tweet
Browns.
about Elijah Moore, his heavy coping? He's like, what if I told you could get, and it's a picture of Olamide Zacchaeus. What if I told you could get an undersized wide receiver and not have to give up draft picks and blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, I quote tweeted and said, I would tell you that you're doing some major coping right now.
Saying,
That's a major coping.
So he's
mechanism.
trying to compare Olamide Zacchaeus, who's a running back at Virginia, by the way.
Who's 5'8"
to Elijah Moore?
Elijah Moore.
No, okay.
Yeah,
I'm with you on this one.
Yeah.
I will say I do think it's a downgrade. I think in cost also too. I think 6.5 for Hardman, and I think Moore was cheaper. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, Moore would definitely be cheaper, but I don't know how much Hardman's at.
That's not an upgrade. Now I know they get the pick out of the deal, but like that's not an upgrade in my mind. Now I guess all of it's angling.
Now they're talking about getting Odell Beckham over in the Jets. This whole Jets thing is turning into like remember the Vince you alluded to earlier, but the Vince Young Eagles team with Michael. This is what it's
the
kind of
the dream team.
It's going to turn.
The difference will be they'll have an actual quarterback when they trade for Rodgers. Now maybe that's what the pick is. Is the pick related to trying to acquire Rodgers? Who knows?
Well, supposedly they haven't even talked this week. The Jets.
The Packers are in no rush to make this happen until the first game of the season. So the pressure's on the Jets.
Anyway,
who else are the Titans getting?
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about like the blocking tight end. Obviously, Foster Moreau, who got diagnosed with cancer, which was insane. And apparently the Saints medical staff catches a lot of people. They caught something with Will Compton when he came in for something. Someone else mentioned some player I'd never even heard of. I can't even.
Why would that be different from team to team? Like, shouldn't the same quality of doctor be doing these?
Have you met the Tennessee Titans? Because, it should be the same quality of doctor. But I mean,
we're in freaking Nashville. Like, we got more healthcare professionals within
Listen, let me tell you something.
15 miles where we
had that cognitive
it's right
system been here for like 7 fucking years, and they didn't even use it. So, let's
okay, fair enough.
Yeah, let's be careful.
Just take all your physicals at Vanderbilt. You know what I mean?
But my thing is, I'm kind of leaning that it's Kevin Raiders filling this Jeff Swainmore.
That's what you said on F words.
Yeah, I'm kind of. I've been on it. I think I'm kind of sniffing it out.
Mm-hmm.
I do think though that obviously blocking tight end, you need a jack of all trades tight end. So you need 2 tight ends to go with Okonkwo. You need one that can kind of fill in to give you that kind of thinly veiled disguise of what the thing's going to be. So Michael Pruitt was that when he was here. Like it was Ferkser, pass. Jeff Swaim only, it was a run. If Michael Pruitt was out there kind of I don't know if it's going to be a run or a pass.
Yeah, no, yes, you need it to be.
So I call him a jack of all trades.
You need to be disguised. It also it's funny. I was listening to you and Mike talk about the tight end going to get him and having him as the Raider as the blocking guy, the third guy when you need him as a specialist. And I'm like, it sells me even more every time I hear you guys talk about that Darnell Washington makes everybody around him better because he makes the left tackle better. Yeah. He makes the right tackle better. He makes the running game better. He makes Okonkwo better. He helps Tannehill. He's just sort of force multipliers hard at tight end, but it does feel like his game again, the tight end on a Georgia who could be a 2nd round pick. That's a guy that does so much of the things you need. Maybe you just need a third guy in that room that's kind of a cheap plug and play piece. Maybe Raiders piece. So, but receiver's the big one to me. Receivers, obviously, what you need to go do. That's why DJ Chark is the name for me.
I think that's a good name, but I think there are DJ Charks in the draft. I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So I almost think that you need a Marvin Jones over a DJ Chark.
I know that's kind of where I'm at. I know you like Jones.
It's not that I think that Jones. I don't subscribe to the fact that you have to have veteran presence inside your locker room, specifically for the wide receivers. I think that Rob Moore has shown, especially with the relationships that he's created, that he can be that calming presence, right? That veteran presence. You look to me. I will show you the way. A.J. Brown, I think, said it best.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think you need it. But if you need that guy, it's Marvin Jones.
I think I see.
I'm still here for Richie James because Jameson Crowder just got signed to the New York Giants.
I saw that.
So that means that his role is gone over at the Giants.
I think I could be on board with either Jones or Chark. I think the key is my issue with Chark is the health. If you guarantee me 15 games,
you still need 3 wide receivers.
I agree. Not 17.
I don't know how you get them, but you need 3.
Yeah. Well, one in the draft, if not 2 in the draft.
Yeah,
for sure.
I would love that.
Probably 2nd or 3rd round pick, as we've talked about. But I think what I like about DJ Chark is if he is healthy and on the field, I think he's the best football player of the group that we could go out and that this team could go out and sign.
Okay.
But he's injured so much that it's hard to know. Also, they do love their LSU players. So I just think he is a physical. He likes blocking. He doesn't mind the contact. Like, he just kind of fits Vrabel's violent, physical, versatile kind of thing, but only if he's healthy, which is the opposite of what Vrabel wants right now. So that's the only reason that there's hesitation, I think, on him. If he had been healthy the last 2 years, 3, I think he is signed already. Fast by somebody.
I'm not sure that they need a left guard in free agency. I would like a left guard in free agency. I would love to have Dalton Risner come in, and then you are pretty much set heading into the draft. You don't have any clear holes. But the reason I don't think you need a left guard is not because you solve it in the draft, but I think it's Jamarco Jones and Dylan Radins.
Until Dylan Radins is healthy.
I am subscribed to that, and there's a reason Jamarco Jones is still on this team, because you have people that can provide you the utility aspect of it. Because you have Jordan Roos, because you have a guy, you have other players that can play both tackle and guard. They're keeping him on here because I think that he's going to come in and compete for that left guard spot this year.
Special thanks to our sponsors, Kingston Group, Sinkers. Go check them out, of course. Uber Eats, search Sinkers, have the booze delivered right to their house, Zach.
They drive so you can drink.
There you go. We got it. We're back in the saddle. All right. I don't know if you have any other free agency things, because I want to quickly touch on Nuke Hopkins.
Yeah, go ahead.
I again, you guys talked about this on F Words, but I think
since we talked, though, it has changed to like it's going to be like closer to the Brandon Cooks trade for DeAndre Hopkins.
So cheaper acquisition costs, right? So we're talking 4th, 5th, 6th round, somewhere in there to get him. Obviously, a huge contract. What, $32 million? I think. So. They'd have to work some cap stuff to either extend him or like whatever. They'd have to work some magic to make it all work from a financial standpoint. But philosophically, I'll just start this by saying DeAndre Hopkins is a great wide receiver. He is one of the best wide receivers of our generation, but he is not in a place in his career where where
does our generation start?
Like when he was drafted, like
so you're talking his generation.
Yeah. Sorry, his generation. Like
I'm about to say Terrell Owens.
No. Sorry. When I think like Hall of Fame status about players, it's about the time that they were playing.
Gotcha.
Were they among the best players at their position during their career? And I think DeAndre Hopkins during his career was among the best receivers. Maybe probably not the best, but like among the best receivers at his position during his career. He's been injured a lot lately. My issue is not that he's a good player or that he would make the Titans better. It's that is completely antithetical to everything that Mike Vrabel and Ran Carthon have told us they are trying to do for this organization right now, which is get younger, faster, more violent, more versatile, more explosive. DeAndre Hopkins is great. He's not a speed threat.
Yeah, but doesn't Nick Westbrook-Ikhine only fit one of those? And that's
but he's not. But Nick Westbrook-Ikhine can be cut in camp and is your 5th wide receiver.
Well, hey,
don't care about.
He's not the 5th wide receiver right now. That's the problem.
Well,
just to throw this out there, and I know that people get added in as
3rd,
2nd.
Well, no, Phillips is ahead of him, right?
No, I mean not when you lining up Phillips on the outside.
No, I agree. Yeah, that's valid. But we know that's not where he's going to be.
Right.
He's a veteran backup stopgap in case of emergency. That's what Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is, and
which is broken open numerous times every year.
He's a good special teams player.
He is the issue. Maybe it's these injury issues have started since Nick Westbrook-Ikhine has gotten considerable playing time and gotten on the roster, his initial 53-man roster. Here's my conspiracy theory.
Okay.
He has a voodoo doll of every wide receiver in the room, and he is poking that voodoo doll. Because this has not happened until he got put on the initial 53, because he wasn't in 2020. It was 2021 and 2022 made the initial 53. He's gunning for people. He's like the Los Angeles Chargers medical doctor stabbing people in the lungs.
Is that the guy who still now works for a media company in town?
Different Chargers doctor. I know you're talking about.
No, what I think is it. So you want to see an example of media bias, just like total media bias. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine likes this shirt. He likes this shirt. I was talking to him one. He's like, "Hey, nice shirt, dude," because it's an Indianapolis 500 shirt. He's from Indiana. He went to Indiana. He liked my shirt, so of course I'm never going to say anything bad about him. That's media bias right there. No, I just think he is clearly your 5th receiver when you start the season. Should things go as planned,
until he starts kneecapping people.
But let's get back to Hopkins. He's under the bar, just like I think Hopkins doesn't fit any of the philosophies that Ran Carthon and Mike Vrabel are trying to project to their roster right now. They are not one old aging wide receiver who is a contested catch monster, but isn't like he doesn't go get open. He's not going to go run routes and pull safety help. Like, he doesn't do that stuff anymore. He is a in traffic, like I don't know. Like he's a bigger, stronger, better version of Robert Woods.
Okay,
like
so let me ask you a question. I'm playing devil's advocate because you know my stance already on this. So I'm just playing devil's advocate.
You're anti-signing
or for the most part. Okay. I'm like right now. Here's where I'm at. So this is kind of where like I'm kind of back on the fence now. Like
okay,
because you give up a 5th and a 6th round pick for him. Okay. Is he better than those 5th? Does he make a bigger impact than the 5th and 6th round player that you draft? Okay,
sure.
So that's okay. Okay, so that's fine. If you are the veteran, if you are subscribe, which I don't, but if you subscribe to the veteran presence of a wide receiver needs to be there, wouldn't you rather spend the 5th and the 6th to get DeAndre Hopkins, or would you rather have Marvin Jones?
Okay,
because you get to get the veterans, and then you got to remember the talent on the field.
Hopkins. But now get me to the cost.
Okay, so I'll get you to the cost.
I know you got some magic over there on the laptop.
I do. So. Okay, so if the Titans were to trade for DeAndre Hopkins, they inherit, and this is if you had notifications on, you would have seen this last night. 2023, they inherit 19.45 base salary. Okay, 2024, 14.915. None of that is guaranteed, so no guaranteed money. So they could restructure $17 million roughly of the 2023 salary, because they could probably do more, but I'm just trying to keep it even.
Gotcha.
And you add 3 void years. Okay. So in doing that, when you do that, just got to open up because of the extra characters they use. That turns into a 2023 cap hit of $5.85 million. So 2023, 5.85.
Manageable.
And you get a potential out next year. You can cut him and have $13.6 million in dead money because
when you have $140
million,
okay, all right,
and you save still $1.315 million against the cap, or you could just keep him and take an $18.315 million cap hit next year, and then after the contract's over, you just have $10.2 million in dead money, or you could extend them after that. And
so basically, for a 5th and 6th round pick, a $5 million cap hit, and then cut $13 million dead the next year, 2024.
Yeah, so you're essentially just cutting like the $19 million.
I mean, if you give me that press release from the Titans, I might be interested. I just don't. Even still, I don't know
just get
what.
Me hired by the Titans, and I'll get you that press release.
There you go. Titans PR is actually great. Okay, Kim and Robbie, we love you guys. Dwight, you guys are great. Here's what I would like. I don't know what it buys you. I don't know where it is this team going to go from 7-11 to like 11 wins and win the division because of DeAndre Hopkins?
I don't know if it's the age and the injury history that scares me off, or if it's the fact that it just does not.
If Derrick Henry's not worth any wins, then DeAndre Hopkins not worth any wins either.
Right. Like it's almost like you're saying if you make this move, you're flashing the neon lights that Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins, Ryan Tannehill, Treylon Burks, this offensive line, this elite defense, we're coming.
We're going to win the division.
We have Super Bowl expectations, which is exactly what they had when they traded for Julio Jones. The problem is they have a hard time thinking that it's the right expectation to have. It's I think they're going to be competitive regardless of if they get DeAndre Hopkins or not. But the problem is you're talking about different levels of competitiveness.
They're one trade away from going for the number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like you trade Tannehill and you are going for the number 1 pick at that point. You're trying to get Caleb Williams or Drake May or whoever else you love up there. Like,
but I don't think that's necessarily the case.
I know
that may be the likely result,
right.
But that is not the case. That's not if they trade Tannehill and they still have Derrick Henry and Kevin Byard, they're still going to win games, and they're still going to try to win games,
and they could still in this division win 6 or 7. So I agree. I get it. I'm always been in agreement with you that Vrabel and the sort of foundational core of the roster is good enough to be competitive most Sundays. I agree with that. Are they going to win most of those games? No. So if we're talking about 6 wins versus 10, if that's their entire window, right? Worst case scenario, they tank, they can win 6 games. Best case scenario, with DeAndre Hopkins, they can win 10 games. But that's also with Kevin Byard, with a healthy defense, with an offensive line, with the free agents that they've signed already working out, with draft picks contributing, with Treylon Burks staying healthy, with Derrick Henry getting 300+ carries, and Ryan Tannehill staying healthy.
Let me ask you a question. Just real
quick.
That
has to happen.
Just real quick, sidebar here. Okay.
Literally.
Dalton Kincaid is not working out at his pro day today. He has a compression fracture that he's still overcoming from in his back injury.
You're talking about the tight end out of Utah?
Yes. Where are you at on this guy if you're the Tennessee Titans and if you were in the draft room and Braden was GM? Are you just – because the ceiling is sky high, right?
Oh,
That's what everybody.
He's one of my favorite players
But
in
this
college
back
last 2
injury-
years. Yes, and I don't think it. There's no there's no connection between Caleb Farley and Dalton Kincaid.
Right.
They're two human
other
beings.
than just like back injuries.
They're totally separate human beings. It's the same thing. Like
Yeah.
Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins and CJ Stroud are totally different human beings. It's not
well,
relevant.
Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins are the same person.
Well, not quite, but there's totally different. Like the Ohio State thing doesn't matter. Is my point. Just like Georgia defenders doesn't matter. What matters is the evaluation of Dalton Kincaid's medical charts, and hopefully they've got better people than doing the physicals.
Maybe everybody
Saints
just
guys?
Yeah, maybe everybody just needs to copy the Saints homework.
Can we get the Saints guys
Yeah.
to evaluate Dalton
Yeah,
Kincaid, please?
that's what you need.
He is a great player. I do not think he gives you the inline blocking along the line of scrimmage. Like I still think you would need a third tight end that's a blocking tight end. He is far more of a split him out in space, throwing the ball a
Darnell
bunch.
Washington or Dalton Kincaid?
Right now, Washington. But
Okay.
can I get Kincaid in the 4th round?
See, that's why I wonder how far he's going to drop. What round does he have to fall to for you to be 4th round?
Probably 4th. No, they don't pick in the 4th.
Yeah.
But I'd say probably the 4th.
Okay. I just wonder. It's just an interesting
I still think
question.
Washington at 2 is a little high with the 41st pick, but
You got to do what you got to do.
But you got to take.
You could
the
have used that
player.
41st pick to get Elijah Moore, but they
Would you have done
wasn't
that?
working.
Would you have done that?
If you
Would you trade the 41st pick for Elijah Moore right now?
Elijah Moore and the 73rd pick that they sent back?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
that's true. That's true.
Heck
Forgot
yeah, I
about that
would.
pick.
I'd write up
And
a little. Listen, I'd frame whatever card the number 41 pick comes in on, frame it, and I would drive it up there myself for Elijah Moore
and keep him away from a potentially. The Browns. I think the Browns are going to be good this year. I know people don't want to hear that, but I think the Browns are going to be good this year.
Deshaun Watson's going to have to step up his game.
He will eventually because
maybe?
he's.
Will he? Is that a given?
Well, he is what he didn't forget how to play. He just was rusty, and that's. I look. We like the coaching staff.
I think it's
a lot of great
interesting-
weapons.
Well, I think it's interesting that they're
defense.
trying to move away from Nick Chubb, which I think is an utter disaster waiting to happen.
No, I think it's now we're off on a very different tangent. I think
We got to
it's-
get to the SEC because we do this every time.
I know,
we talk
we
about
just
the
college
NFL.
football.
We just like fuck SEC.
All right, SEC. Let's do SEC. Sinkers, by the way, we are at their event space here. If you want to book it, by the way, make sure you reach out
We
to
got
them.
like 3
Sinkers.
minutes.
Sinkers is the website. So real quickly here, we always do this. SEC storylines.
We'll
get
have
pushed
to
the
we'll have to
back.
do like an SEC. Let's prep this SEC storyline subject with. How about this? Well, I know we say
prime
SEC
the pump.
storylines that matter.
Okay.
Why don't you go through real quick and say why do people or what are the kinds of storylines that people are focusing their energy on in the wrong sense? Like we had talked earlier about people already writing the story of Nico's career. Obviously, letting freshmen play out would be one of the storylines you gotta let happen.
The transfer quarterback that looks great against air. We don't know what he is yet. That's a storyline you forget about. Okay. The freshman linebacker who played great in the spring game doesn't mean he's going to be on the starting lineup in the fall camp. So the guy who has the big spring game, who's a young freshman, who's wowing you. I've read a lot of articles that are like in depth in the weeds about practice to practice, like offensive line battles, right? Like here's the 7 names for the 2 spots on the left side of the offensive line for Arkansas, let's say. Like that stuff is complete garbage. It doesn't mean that the names aren't important to remember, but it doesn't matter until fall camp. Nothing like you are installing an offense if you have a new coordinator.
So like
August when camp starts is when if a freshman is starting to run with the ones. I care about that in August. I don't care about that in the spring. It's better that it's like landing a recruit. It's better to get the player than to not. But what matters in the SEC is new offensive coordinator and 3 quarterbacks at Georgia battling for a starting job for the 2-time defending champs. That is a really big story. Ty Simpson versus Jalen Milroe at Alabama with a new coordinator, Tommy Rees. That is a huge storyline to watch. You're not going to learn the answer in the spring unless a coach comes out and says, Ty Simpson is the starting quarterback at Alabama, or Carson Beck is the starting quarterback at Georgia. Unless the coach does that, and by the way, they have no incentive to do that because they don't want players to transfer. So they want to keep it open as long as possible because there's another transfer window coming. Don't worry about the specific player names in spring practice. What matters is the big picture stuff. Kentucky's new offense. The offensive line needs to be fixed. The new coordinator, the new coach. How are they all working together? Apparently, Kentucky's running a wider open offense. It's going to be more spread out. It's going to run more tempo this year. The offensive line might be improved. That's the kind of don't worry about the names. Don't worry about the depth chart. Worry about the big picture stuff. How the hell is Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher going to exist in the same coaching room? Jimbo Fisher's first press conference this week was the most bizarre spring press conference I've ever seen.
Even weirder than the ones
Almost,
from last year.
because what do you do in the spring if you're a coach? It's all optimism.
Yeah.
It's all, well, we got a bunch of great guys coming in for spring. We're going to get some work done. We're going to develop the young guys. We're going to install the new tricks. We're going to play some players at these new positions. We're going to find out what we got at this depth chart. And everybody's happy. It's so easy to sell positivity in spring press conferences. It's just what you do. Everybody else does it. Jimbo Fisher wouldn't even let the reporter finish the question with Bobby Petrino's name in it. He stopped him and was like, well, we're just going to run the same offense and does the whole thing. And at the end he goes, yeah, and Bobby P's going to call the plays, which is what the question was going to be. It's already contentious. Now, Bobby Petrino is going to do great things.
Do you think he hired Bobby Petrino, or was Bobby Petrino hoisted on him by the boosters?
He wasn't forced on him.
Okay.
He wasn't forced on him. But here's what's fascinating from a media perspective and from fans around the SEC that can just watch from a distance, unless you're an A&M fan, I guess. Sorry. I do think the offense is going to be much better, and the expectations for A&M are low, so of course they'll do good. But no matter what happens, it's Jimbo Fisher's fault. If it's bad and it doesn't work, it's Jimbo Fisher's fault. If the offense is great and it does work, guess who gets credit?
Jimbo Fisher.
Bobby Petrino.
Oh.
It doesn't matter what happens in College Station. Jimbo Fisher's ego loses.
I like it.
It loses no matter what.
Then we all win.
And we all win. But again, don't worry about who's starting at wide receiver in the spring game for A&M. That's not what matters. What matters is big picture. Are Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher able to coexist? So think about the big picture stuff. That's what matters. Nico Iamaleava. Dennis Dodd wrote this. It's not an anti-Dennis Dodd take, but it is a anti-whoever sourced this take to him. Whispers around Tennessee's program that maybe he's not worth the $8 million contract. 4 years. 12 seconds into the 8-year contract.
Grind that take into cocaine and snort it.
That feels good to you?
Oh, my God.
But the idea that
I'd
you
be so happy because Nico and Arch Manning, I just have this.
Arch is going to crush people. Just to let everybody. He's way better. I think he's way better than Nico, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Well, Nico sucks. So we've already heard that he's not even going to win the job.
He's not supposed to. The point is how can you decide on an 18-year-old's future in one practice against air?
Do you watch Ted Lasso?
How does the coach even know? What if Josh Heupel is the source of the information?
Do you watch Ted Lasso?
I've watched the first episode. I've not seen the second one yet. Because I'm holding off so the wife wants to watch it. So. But I do love Ted Lasso.
When you watch the second episode, which of season 3, we'll talk. Are you on season 3 or season 1?
Season 3. Yeah. And we're one episode behind.
I'll tell you. We'll circle back to this Nico Dennis Dodd thing, and then you'll pick up what I'm laying down.
Oh, my God.
You'll pick up the reference I was going to make.
Fair enough. For Jason and Sean and Stoney and Trey and Mark and all you guys that show up every single day, every single show for us, we really appreciate you guys, man. And here's the deal. Sign up for the In Crowd. It's the name of the club there, the VIP club for Sinkers and Bluegrass in Hendersonville. So Sinkers in East, Hendersonville or Bluegrass in Hendersonville. Sign up for the In Crowd, get your information there, become a VIP, and we're going to have some really cool events for you guys this summer. We're going to have some tastings. We might have some brewery tours. We're really excited about the partnership. We're super proud to have them on board. Sinkers, right there's the logo right there. And we do appreciate their support. Locally owned, family operated since 1985, serving Nashvillians. And again, lots of really fun, cool stuff planned for you guys throughout the course of the summer that's going to involve actual human beings getting together in person. How about that? And hopefully a lot of this stuff too. A lot of this good brown water back here. Also, thanks to the Kingston Group, buildkg.com, of course.
Almost got me a Montucky beer out of the fridge over here.
Hey, we were told we can.
Well, he said soft drinks and water, so I was like,
Oh, you don't? Well, should we taste some of this? I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, check out Sinkers and Kingston Group, buildkg.com. Also locally owned and operated, award-winning custom home and remodeling firm in Nashville. We only partner with the best, folks. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. F-Words Pod, of course, on Twitter. F-Words Pod, everywhere you get your podcasts. You can get to me.
StackingTheInbox.com.
Oh, forgot about that one. Sorry, that. There you go. And then at Braden Gall, of course, on Twitter, at 440 Sports. And please tell somebody about the show. We got a big plan. We got big stuff planned for you on Monday as well. Quarterback stuff. Lots of stuff. Have a great weekend, everybody. Otherwise, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. For Zach, I'm Braden. This has been a football show.